All right, hello YouTube. Welcome back to builds that make me wonder if I'm actually still sane. And today's episode, we have this character. This is going to be a whole thing to explain. This is a berserker that is sort of life stacking. I mean, you can see I have 8k life. I should have more. But regardless, this is a berserker that is doing life stacking, that is using the Ravenous Passion helmet for rage, to generate rage by using spells. But then I'm using Burden of Shadows for spell damage, for spells deal added chaos equal to 20% of your max life. But also using Apostate to change all of your armor items to instead of having ES, give you life. So yeah, so basically we're a life stacking, rage using, spell wielding Zerker, something like that. And if you before we really get into the meat and potatoes of this build, something to note very quickly is that if you were to do a build like this, if you really wanted to, I would think you're kind of crazy if you want to do this build as well. I just kind of wanted to show it off as a bit of a fun thing, and a bit of a weird thing as well. But if you were to do something similar, you have to remember that Burden of Shadows makes your skills be affected by a level 1 life tap, which then means that you actually do not generate any rage for the purpose of Ravenous Passion here. We generate no rage for that. So you have to do a 2-button build if you were to do this. So that is why I'm actually doing Frostbolt and Ice Nova, is because the Frostbolts will instead count as our mana spender. So before we really get into a map, I'll sit here and like wind up and generate my rage. So you see it building up. We're generating rage. We're ramping. And then we're at 70. Okay, and then I'll start moving around, and then I'll start doing stuff and all that kind of good stuff. So that is essentially what we do. But you don't have to use Ice Nova, Frostbolts, and Frostbolt. You could use Vortex if you want to. I've been testing with Vortex. You could use Bladefall, Blade Blast. That's another like pretty good 2-button build, and would also enable you to use some of the other like physical damage and like some other rage stacking. You also don't have to go this route at all. You could do Wrathpith, so you could swap out for a one-hand and Wrathpith instead. I just personally don't really care to use Wrathpith. I've used it a couple times. It's still fun, but it's also like you do something enough, eventually you just get bored of it. Or maybe you're one of those people who's just like, hey, you know what, if I can do the same thing over and over again, it doesn't bother. But regardless, I wanted to kind of just go over the character itself, just as like a base concept, just kind of tell you about it, and then I'll just go into a map really quick. It's just a blue one. As you can see, we're only level 90 right now. I'm still very much in the gearing process. I'm making these videos like a bit earlier than I usually would in my build making process. Oh, not Rogue Exiles, dude. I don't want to deal with Rogue Exiles. I'm making these videos a bit earlier just because my own like timing and schedule has been really weird lately. So so I've kind of been doing, well, Scam Likely, my best friend. So I've kind of been doing these videos a bit earlier than I normally would. Yeah, so we can see, so we ramp. Now we come out into the map and we start actually casting stuff. So the one thing I will say about this build is you have to be ready for how sketchy the build looks overall. Like, we're using Dissolution of the Flesh as well, so your health is getting reserved as you take hits. You're using your health both from Burden of Shadows with life tap, and we're using Sacrifice support, so we're using a lot of health that way as we're doing stuff. So the build looks super sketchy. I actually might die there. Stupid. Oh, never good. I still wouldn't be surprised if I die in the middle of this video, which is fine. I'm doing this just to kind of show some things off. I still have a lot to figure out and do with the character, but I wanted to show just like the baseline and just kind of make a video of it because it's pretty funny. We actually do way more chaos damage than we do cold. In fact, we don't really do a whole ton of cold damage. The cold is really just there to chill and shatter enemies, and also to leech us some more life as well. I have life leech attached on my gloves. I have some life leech on them. Yeah, that sounds right. I will say, Dissolution of the Flesh really requires some getting used to as well. Like this, like Dissolution itself has gotten me killed so many times because I'm not used to it. And like, if you take any kind of like dot damage and like you don't really have like a way to get out of it or anything like that, you'll just watch your health melt away and you can't do anything about it. But you can see though, like damage wise, it's really not bad. Like, it kind of just, we just get to kind of run through, you know, run through maps like it's nothing. If they have energy shield, so be it. We have a, we're dealing chaos damage for the most part, so we just really just melt through their energy shield, which is actually really, really nice. And like I said, I only have 8,500 life right now, and so way more life will come from getting more levels, more some different gear, some swapping around for sure, along with also actually setting up. All right. So he's dead. I just heard the fist. Here comes the giant fist. Patrick cow. If I had slower proj on, he actually would have been dead right there. I did not set it up, and I'm not going to now. Hey, come back here. Bye. So yeah, that's more or less the build right there. That's pretty much what you do. You run around and do that. If you want to, you just swap out whenever you get into a situation where you know that you're going to be actually dealing with a tougher enemy, then you just swap in slower projectiles, because slower projectiles just enables more of the ice novas to hit. Also, in a true bossing environment, I believe you swap to volley. I have volley in my inventory right there. And I believe it's because for bosses, you actually do want the full swap to that. But that's like bossing, not like map bosses. Map bosses, you're fine to still use GMP. But I believe bossing, you want to use that. That's just my own, I think, knowledge from other people that are running the regular version of the skill, obviously. But I believe that's what you do. I believe you just run those. A chaos orb. Thank goodness, I am chaos poor. This has been it's a really weird league from the stock standpoint. But that is the character. I just wanted to run a quick map right there. Wasn't going to do too much else with the character outside of that, because like I said, I have a lot to still figure out. I have some bosses like that I could run, and I could have maybe even done just like a Drox or one of these guys, or any of these guys. I probably could have run right there, and it would have been fine. But I'm still kind of I just wanted to show it off, and then hopefully my plan, as long as I have enough time for myself, and also if my internet's holding up. That's been the other thing. My internet's been a nightmare, but regardless, as long as everything holds up, then I'll hopefully get a few more levels on this character, swap out some of the gear, and then try out bossing for realsies, and maybe make an update video on that. But regardless, so here is the tree that I've gone with. So you can see we have we've taken Iron Will, and we're coming over here to take Berserking just for more max rage. Obviously, the more rage we have, the better it is for the sake of Ravenous Passion. You could probably drop these points if you didn't want to run all of this. I'm not entirely sure how necessary it is. Necessary in pretty big quotations. But it is a good amount of damage. It's a good bit more speed, and I can't say no to that. So we're running that. Dissolution of the Flesh, of course, is what we're using here for 25% more maximum life. It's really good. Something else that's very nice about Dissolution is that if we're running Petrified Blood, which we are, then we also run Pain Attunement, more spell damage while we're on low life. So therefore, with Petrified Blood, we're always on low life. And Dissolution of the Flesh will actually still take away. It will still reserve life. If you notice it during that map, it will reserve life in the top half of our unreserved top area of life. It will reserve that first before it starts to reserve our Petrified Blood side. So it's sort of also a like free damage that you're taking if you get hit, and it's just in those top half section there. Basically free damage, very nice. But yeah, it takes a while to get used to Dissolution, I would say. I definitely a lot of times just kept being like, oh my god, am I good here? Am I gonna die? Am I good? And you have to, you know, kind of run around for a couple of seconds and be careful of taking dot damage, but you can absolutely get around with that. And the removes all energy shield does not matter at all, because Apostate will have already converted all of our energy shield to maximum life instead of energy shield, which is then perfect. Then we don't have any downside from dissolution, which is great. The other thing to note really quick, I'll just talk expense-wise right quick with this build. Burden of Shadows really wasn't expensive. I think for this roll, which is a decent roll, has 20% of chaos damage instead of 15. Base cast speed roll, that doesn't matter too much though. But I think this, when I bought it, was 60C, and it wasn't 6-linked. I 6-linked it myself. It wasn't really wasn't that bad. 6-linking things this league seems to be incredibly cheap, which is actually great. So you can easily get away with using this very cheap. Apostate, on the other hand, this is where it got expensive. This is a very expensive item. This was like 6 or 7 divines, I think, when I bought it. So not exactly a cheap build. I can't fully say that I can't even necessarily fully say that it's entirely worth it. But it's still been fun, and it's cool to use a new item. But yeah, so Apostate though was like 7 divines, not 6-linked again, so I had to 6-link this myself as well, which I did. Ravenous Passion, very cheap. I don't know, 20C, something like that. Very, very cheap. And Dissolution of the Flesh is also quite cheap, like 20C. I think I literally bought this for 20C and then divined it for 5%. I think it was at 20%, divined it to 25. Mid-roll, but I'll take what I can get, right? So those are sort of the most expensive parts. Everything else here is really not all that expensive. Maybe the amulet. The amulet I might have spent another divine on, maybe. But even then, I don't think I even spent the divine on it. That was probably just like 100C. I can't recall anymore. But regardless, though, so now that we have everything all established, we need survivability and we need damage, of course. So we're going to try to take as much spell crit as we can, and the other thing that we want is life regen. More life regen. That's what we want. So as you can see, the tree itself is kind of weird. We're kind of going all over, but we're taking as much life regen as we possibly can, and also we want all of the life masteries, because if we get all of the life masteries, then we get another 10% more maximum life. You have to have all 6 allocated, but then you get another 10% more, just more life per life. I have the Surge of Vigor over here, which just really helps with more regen, or if you're taking any kind of decent damage, and it's actually kind of, or actually, it's mostly for when you're using your sacrifices. Then all of a sudden you'll see like my health just surged back up right there. That was Surge of Vigor right there. So it's actually very, very handy node to have. And then we take the mastery for 50 life per second. If you're wondering why we need so much life regen, it is because as Berserker, we lose, what is it, 0.1%? Yeah, 0.1% of life per second per rage while you're not losing rage. So as we're casting Frostbolts, as we're running through the map, we're losing life constantly. So we need to have enough regen to make up for that. And then we also are losing another 500 life per second from Burden of Shadows. So you have to get a lot of life regen. You'll see most of my gear, while it's not perfect, while it's not completely set up, most of my gear is set to have life regen in mind, and a lot of my tree is also set with life regen. And then outside of that, we just kind of have generic crit and generic spell crit stuff. Nothing too crazy. If you wanted to, I went up here, I'm going to take Serpent Stance, mostly for the chance to block as well, just because a little bit more tanky if I can, just for the occasional block. But if you wanted to, you could also actually not take these points, and since we deal so much chaos damage, you can actually come up and take Heart of Darkness. It's the same exact point traveling to go from here, through this life node here, come over here, take Heart of Darkness, that it is to go up and take Serpent Stance. I will be taking this life node at level 93, so I'll go, yeah, I'm level 90 right now, 91, 92 to take Serpent Stance, 93 goes there. And then 94, 95, I've kind of not really decided. Probably just take some more life nodes, just try to really stack more life on top of this character. We have Anointed Counterweight over here for more crit multi while wielding a staff, which we are using. Yeah, and that's pretty much everything. We have some good stuff over here, some with influence. We're taking Sovereignty, of course. The other thing is, you'll notice I do not have Zealotry active right now. That is because I don't have enough mana to be able to... Oh, wait, actually, I do now. Oh my gosh. It's very slow. I can very slowly use Zealotry right now. Okay, previously I actually could not. But ideally, I'll be getting my Enlightened support here to level 3, and then I will be able to use... Then I'll be able to consistently use Frostbolt and consistently use Zealotry. But until I get to that point, I am just kind of going without Zealotry. But eventually, ideally, you slot that in. So with that, we'll just kind of move into the links. I won't focus too much on the gear just because of the fact that this gear is all sort of still a work in progress. Especially the boots. The boots don't have move speed on them at all, and it kind of kills me, but thankfully the rage having triple effect gives me enough move speed to where I don't want to cry while I'm doing it. So yeah, with that, so we have Nova of Frostbolts here. We're doing increased critical damage, some spell echo, of course, sacrifice, support. So that's why we're sacrificing even more life to gain even more chaos damage. We're using increased critical strikes, of course, and then concentrated effect, because we actually still have quite a lot of AoE, even with... We still have a decent AoE between the Frostbolts and the Ice Novas attached to them, versus if we didn't use concentrated effect. So I actually really enjoy running concentrated effect on this build. In our hat here, we're using Zealotry, Petrified Blood, of course, Determination, and then the Enlightened. Like I said, get the Enlightened level 3. Down here we have the bread and butter for this league, which is Enduring Cry, Call to Arms, and Increased Duration. Just gives us that free, basically free Enduring Cry. Can give us some endurance charges. Can give us gives us a lot of life regen. I also got that dog in me. And then we have just good old Assassin's Mark, throw it on whenever you're fighting a tougher target. Self-cast, easy enough, not a big deal. Over here, then we are using... I forgot to pick up a gem link. Arrogance with Vitality, Flame Dash, and Clarity. Believe it or not, the Flame Dash doesn't need to be attached to Arrogance, that's just a happenstance. But Clarity-wise, we actually really need, just because Frostbolt does cost a lot of mana, because it needs to. So yeah, Frostbolt costs 62 mana. We're casting it a lot, we're casting it often, because we need our Rage. We need to be able to set up for Ice Nova, so be sure that you have probably Clarity, if not Clarity, just a lot of mana regen. And then Vitality, because life regen good. Ideally, this will probably be level 21. And if you wanted to, you could also take the... You could either take the Reservation Mastery for increased damage per aura, or you could also take the increased life reservation efficiency, so that those two skills take up even less life, which then allows Dissolution to take more life before actually hitting your true life pool. And then yeah, otherwise the gear itself, this is just a synthesized ring, regenerates life. I think I needed the dexterity, so that's why that has that. Oh, sorry, I didn't go over Frostbolt here too. So Frostbolt, power charge on crit, just our way to generate crits. Greater multiples, slower proj, returning projectiles, and then life leech. This could be swapped out for pretty much anything you want. If you really wanted to, you could use inspiration, but inspiration will also make it so that it takes longer for you to build your rage, because you need to spend 200 mana. So that's up to you. I just use life leech just to make things a bit cozier as the Frostbolts are going out, and they hit things, then they're leeching life back to you at the same time. The gloves also here have 0.2 of cold damage leeches life, so we're getting a lot of leech for all of our sacrificing that we're doing. We have a lot of regen as well, so we should be in a pretty decent spot with all that. But yeah, otherwise though, the ring, I think I just needed the dexterity, but obviously will be re-rolled to have more regenerate, to regenerate more life. Probably still need the dex, and then more resistances and more life. So this will just be continuously to be improved. This ring over here is actually pretty decent as is, but it could use some higher values, and the 1 to 2 cold damage to attacks obviously does nothing. So that has to be fixed, and will be fixed at some point. My marble amulet here, this thing's actually is pretty decent, though the maximum energy shield does nothing, because remember, the way the Apostate works is it only converts your energy shield to max life from armor items, not jewelry. So this will do, so the energy shield here does nothing for me, but the rest of it is still very solid. Yeah, and then the boots, like I said, they don't have any move speed. That kills me. I'll eventually fix these. Same with the gloves. The gloves are okay, but that, again, added cold damage to attacks. I keep rolling it. I don't know how I keep hitting it, but that's the one. Belt-wise, just has a lot of resistances. Nothing crazy here. I'll eventually... Actually, ideally, eventually, I will get this to be a Hunter Stygian Vice. Hunter Stygian Vice for the percent increased life. I think it goes up to 10%, which would be a really big increase to our life as well. And then, like I was saying as well with Frostbolt, just a really quick side note, whenever you're about to do a boss, you probably want to swap in slower projectiles. And whenever you're just kind of mapping, I recommend just using Hypothermia, just regular speed Frostbolt does it. If you're a speed demon, you could use faster projectiles. I used that for a little while, and you'll just mow through a whole map and be on your merry way, and it's a ton of fun like that as well. But yeah, otherwise just Hypothermia. If you're doing like a boss, like you're fighting Drox, you're fighting Cirrus, Shaper, whatever, I think then you put in volley support, and that's just because then the overlap from the Ice Nova and the ball becomes way more consistent. So I believe that's what you do for that. Alternatively, again, like I was saying, I was thinking about using Vortex as well, which is about the same. The only difference is that Vortex destroys the... I believe it destroys the... I believe it destroys the Frostbolt, but you'll see the Frostbolts like actually still come back. So I don't actually fully understand the interaction and how it works with returning projectiles. If the Vortex hitting it causes the Frostbolt to say, I've reached the end of my area, so then it comes back. But I don't know if it does damage on the way back, so I don't know. But Vortex itself, Vortex of Projection with it, is also actually very, very strong and is also a very good skill. I believe it has a higher base. It has a higher base hit that it will do than Ice Nova, I'm pretty sure. Because I feel like I was looking at it on the POB and it said it would deal more damage just by itself, pretty much. Just with a direct one-to-one swap, it said it would deal more. I can't say I'm entirely certain. But regardless, so that is pretty much this character in a nutshell. And in a nutshell, I mean, however long this took. But yeah, like I said, just a few more levels, and then I'll hopefully be putting out an update. I'm going to try some actual bossing with this character once I can get a couple more levels kind of set up, and once I can do a few more things. But I hope you enjoyed what is probably one of the strangest builds that I've put together, one of the weirdest ones that I've really thought about for sure. I don't know what came over me, what possessed me to make this build, but I really felt like doing it. But yeah, I hope you find it interesting. Hope you enjoy. Hope you've been having fun with Path of Exile. Regardless, it's still been a really fun league. I haven't been able to do any tier 17s just because I am not somebody that makes characters tanky enough to be able to run those, which is disappointing. But maybe in the future, I might be fixing that pretty soon. We'll see. But either way, YouTube, take it easy. Let me know if you have any questions. As per usual, the POB will be in the comments or in the description below. And yeah, otherwise, YouTube, take care now.